kraado is a program that validates the skills of college students and early graduates as they prepare to join the workforce. So what we usually do is you can pick up and complete projects in the form of internships. Yes, and then you accumulate, sorry, work points. So that it's a gamified sort of platform, and it's very, very fun working with Crado. We make sure we match your skills and your educational academia background to businesses and startups that are ready to create that space for you to explore and develop. And then we're just saying build experience and confidence with us. Now that we all know ourselves, we have to know our speaker. So our speaker is in the person of Heather Tino Mavunga. She's a communications and product marketing professional with over 8 years of experience. So it's not easy. You have a guru within us. And then she's also an alumnus of MEST Africa and Digify Africa, and she has worked as an SME consultant on storytelling to multiple organizations across West Africa. Um, Looking at Heather's profile, what actually draws me to her, what makes me want to listen to her more today, is that she believes that communication is a lifeline that is keeping remote businesses going. And I totally identify with that because if you're in virtual spaces, if you're not under the same building where you're all connected physically, one of the best way to be going about business in remote, setting is definitely communication. So we like to hear from Heather herself, who maybe some interesting facts, some additional facts that I missed that she could add, and then I think she can, let us know what she has for us today. Hi, Heather.
Hi. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm still stuck on interesting additional facts that I can say that you haven't already said. But I guess besides everything you've said, I'm a marketing professional. I've been in the industry for over 8 years now. One interesting fact about me, I love music. I love the music business, and I love working with artists as well. I consider myself a bit of a DJ, but
Ooh.
you have to pay me to see my skills. So yeah, that's me. So thank you so very much for having me today. I'm really excited to have the session.
Thank you, Heather. So I think yes, the floor is yours, and then you can take off.
Okay, all right. So just to confirm, can everybody see my screen?
I think it's still loading.
It's still loading.
Yeah, but we can't see it.
Okay. Now?
Yes, I think yeah, we're good now. Thank you.
All right. Okay, great. So I think you've already said, given me, a background of who I am. So just like I write, I strategize, I implement, I coach. You can find me on the following social media handles. They are the same everywhere. If you want to follow me, and if you want to email me after this session, you can. You're welcome to do that. So today we're really going to be talking about best practices for remote working. So you know how life has changed. Everybody has been working from home or wherever you have to, just because it's safer for us to be away from each other. So communication has changed. How you communicate in the workplace has really, really changed. So throughout this session, we are going to go through the following topics. So tools that make work easier. I'll share with you tools that I use that are sort of best practices across the board that everybody uses to make remote working easier. the best communication practices. You can think of them as ways that will just ensure that when you're communicating with new team members, or when you're just a part of a new team, or you are being asked to lead a new team, this will help you to get up and running far much quicker. And then efficiency and productivity hacks that just make your life really, really easy. Sometimes they look really obvious, but when you just start something and you start that way, things are much easier. And then advice for newbies. And then we'll go through a live example, a case study of how communication can easily go wrong when you think you've communicated enough, but just how we can make this better. So I understand that from the session, the questions will come at the end. So if you have any, you can just write them in the chat, and then the moderators will take note of them, and then I'll answer them at the end. All right. So there's this very lovely TED Talk on YouTube called 10 Ways to Have a Better Conversation by Celeste Headley. And I would really advise everybody to go and watch it after this session. It's really the inspiration behind this presentation today, because what can be more important in the 21st century than being able to communicate in a coherent and confident way, whether it's in person or you're writing. So close to 2 years ago, our lives are really completely different. I think by now all of us have been through some kind of personal hell. We've lost friends, we've lost family. Some have lost jobs. People have moved countries. Families have come back together. A lot has happened. So, I think when I think about it, it's almost like the world came to an end, and then we are now rebuilding. So I don't know if any of you watched Pacific Rim. It's one of my favorite movies. And I kind of think about this period like that, where now we are rebuilding, and we are coming out of the struggle, we're coming out of the fight. So if you haven't watched it, I highly encourage you to give it a try. It's top entertainment, heartwarming stuff. So there's the poster. But the reason why I'm saying this is because really things have been hard. So when you're communicating with people, you almost have to be empathetic almost all the time. That kindness can help you, because a lot of people are going to join teams, people that they will never meet, co-workers that they will only know on the Slack channel, people that you only know via email. You probably never meet them in your life. And there are few practices that if you take, they can make your life easier and their life easier, and you can enjoy a good working experience even with people you never ever meet. So when you're establishing good communication from the start, they're just really four simple rules, no matter which role you find yourself in, whether you are working, you're like your support staff, or you are a leader. You really have to focus on being clear in your communication and requesting clarity. And I know this is where a lot of us, I could say, struggle, because sometimes you wonder, how do you ask your manager, maybe you've never met this person before, for clarity. But when you don't ask for clarity, that's when things can go haywire. The second step is staying curious. Curiosity really can help you to get out of your head and get into the work. And then once you know what you're supposed to be doing, implement and then follow through. So we'll start off with the 6 common remote work tools that I advise that everybody who wants to get into remote work should use. And we'll start off with Trello. So Trello is a very, very simple and easy to use software. You can just sign up for an account online with your Google account or social media. Basically, it helps you to sort the work that you have to do. So you can sort it in different ways. You can sort it by clients. You can sort it by date when it's needed. You can sort it in the following ways, where you can say these are the tasks that need to be done. Please excuse me. these are the tasks that need to be done, these are the tasks that are in progress, and these are the tasks that have been done, and these are probably things that you need from other people to continue. It helps you at least to keep on seeing how your work is flowing, and to even start to see how much time it takes you to complete a certain task. It's also international standard at this point. A lot of people ask, well, have you used Trello before? Have you been part of a Trello team before? And it's really helpful for you to just understand how it works. There are also tools like Asana as well. And for those who are software developers or work in freelance web development, you know about Jira or ClickUp. Yeah, and some people also use another software called Monday, but Trello is really the standard. And then Google Sheets. So Google Sheets is really important for collaboration, lists, and documentation. Sometimes, and also sharing as well. So sharing those documents when you put them together. Same with Google Docs, the entire G Suite of tools. So just knowing that how to keep those together, and then creating folders where you can keep all this information in the same place, and being able to share them easily with a lot of different teams and a lot of different people. It doesn't just make you look organized, it makes you look accountable. And that is something that you always want to establish from the start, because when your work is there for your supervisor to view or for your team member to contribute to, then they feel included in what you do, and they feel confident in your abilities. And then there are tools like FreshBooks, so this is for the freelancers out there. FreshBooks and PayPal, those help you with tracking your revenue. And when you're doing your invoicing, you really have to be able to check and see how much money is coming in and how much money is going out of your small business. And then Slack is also another standard at this point, an international standard at this point. A lot of teams that are working remotely, they've just gone to Slack. And Slack is basically for teamwork and project management. So same thing when it comes to Slack, always keep your information in folders where people can see it easily, and always share and contribute in discussions where your voice is needed. Now we'll move on to best practices for communication. So when you first enter into an organization, I would highly advise you to do the following. So the first is establish who your manager is. So once you know who your manager is, or who your other managers are, or the managers of your manager, then you have to know how the information flows in the workplace, so that you can start to find out when your work is needed, and you don't fall behind, and you don't miss deadlines. And then if you are the manager, of course, if you have new staff, introduce yourself so that people can get to know you. The next thing is to research the company internally. So when you were still applying for the job, you probably read up on their LinkedIn, you went on their social media, looked for some articles about them. But understanding what the company, the kinds of projects that the company is working on, that is information that you can find in the Slack channels that you're given access to when you get into an organization. So explore them, read all on the shared documents that you can find, understand the different projects, try to understand the role that you've been specifically hired for, how it would fit in those different kinds of projects. As meetings go on, you start to understand where Slack has occurred. So when I say Slack, I mean where the ball has fallen, maybe when it's to do with your role, and then how you can then plug yourself into that by solving those problems even before you've been asked to work on them. The next one really is to understand your role, and that really involves understanding who needs your input, who could help you, and how the wheel of information spins in the organization. So we can take the example of people who work as part of a digital marketing agency. You sometimes have the photographer who doubles as the graphic designer. You've got a video editor. You've got a copywriter. You've got a supervisor. Then you've got an advertising manager. So all these people are depending on, they've got one objective, to create content and make sure that the content goes live for a certain client. So in order for that to happen, if pictures have to be taken or content has to be shot, the video editor has to shoot that. They have to produce it. They then have to cut it, split it up. They have to add music, B-roll, whatever they need to do, and then they now have to send it in for editing, proofreading, creative sign-off, all of that. So that's all part of how an organization would spin, how the wheel spins. So when the photographer or the graphic designer doesn't add the logo or forgets to maybe change the color grading or change the font, that is how sometimes things can happen, and then you don't get the result you're looking for. So that's the reason why you have to understand what you do, so that you know who needs your input before they can move on to the next step. And then when it comes to when you first come into an organization, one of the first things that you can do that can help you to really establish trust with your team is to send end of week reports. Sometimes even when they haven't been asked for on a Friday, whether it's about the things that you have done and what you plan on doing the next week. A lot of people have highlighted the importance of 90-day plans in the past. And really this is just a 90-day plan of, in the first 3 months, I aim to achieve XYZ. End of week reports can help you get to that first, because then they give you a trail of how your job changes over time, or how the tasks that you do, how they work out over time. So more on communications. So I think a lot of us are in and out of Zoom calls almost every day. At least I know everyone has at least 1 or 2 Zoom calls every week. So people really value their time now. So if a call has been set for 9 a.m. or it's been set for 6 p.m. or whatever the time is, press the dial to call at exactly the moment that it goes 9. That's because 1 minute before, 1 minute, or just 1 minute after, 1 minute before, people are living at home and they're working at home. For some people, that 1 minute is them when they're rushing from the kitchen with a cup of coffee, or just trying to put down their babies to sleep, and they're counting on that minute just before the clock strikes 9 a.m. So try and be cognizant of that, because then at least when you call someone on time, they are ready, rather than 2 minutes before. In real life, being early like that, like I arrived 10 minutes early for the meeting, looks great, but when you do it in virtual, it's a bit invasive. So respect the time that people give you and arrive on time as much as you can. The next one really is seems very obvious, but it's really important. So responding to emails quickly and matching the energy of the team in terms of response time. So when you first start working with whether it's a new client or a new team, understand just how much time it takes them to respond and match that. But if you see that you can do better, and then you become the leader, and then you change the communication and even the speed of how things are done. But when it's clients, you always respond to emails as fast as you can, and then they will take their time. But when it's an organization, match the energy for a while until you understand how the company works. And then when it comes to instructions that you don't understand, rather than working with assumptions, I would strongly advise that you follow up immediately or within an hour. Just sit with it, try and understand what you don't understand. Whatever you do, don't sit in confusion. Don't try and do something and say, well, I thought it was going to be like X, Y, Z. Follow up and ask, well, and I got this task. Are you expecting X, Y, Z? Am I correct? Or would you like to make some additions? That's the part about accountability that is really important in remote work, because then you're not someone who's giving excuses. You're asking for clarity. And then if you're running a business, request feedback from your customers, or if you're part of the support staff, request feedback from your customers and for managers after 3 months, just to be able to get information. And I know a lot of people who are working for small businesses and startups. Usually, those systems have not yet been set up. They just don't have processes as yet. So self-direct, because in every place that you work at, every single job that you take, you should be able to have some review of your performance, because the time that you invest in gaining those skills, you never know, it's a transferable skill. A skill like a front-facing skill like communicating with clients is a transferable skill that is really client relationship management and customer relationship support. So it's important for you that you should be able to get that feedback for yourself. And then whatever feedback you get is useful for your company and also useful for you. I would say that remember that it's a gift. So when someone lets you know how you are doing, whether it's positive or it's negative, embrace it, take it. If it's negative, try and understand what are the learnings here and what you can do to improve, and how possibly that could have happened in the first place. And if it's positive, then that definitely means something you should be doing more of. So now we move on to efficiency and productivity hacks. And I know everybody knows what efficiency means by now, but it's one of my favorite nouns, the state or quality of being efficient, because that is really one of the things that separate the great and the not so great. It really makes a big difference. So there are a few things that you can start to do today that will make you very, very efficient. And they're very simple. Simple things like labeling your documents neatly when you are sending them in for review. Sometimes when you download information, like I know all of us can be very lazy to just label it properly, but that actually makes a very, very big difference, because the situations that always happen where someone says, "Oh yeah, did you send me the email? I don't think I remember what was the highlight, or what can I search for?" Now, if you hadn't even labeled the document in the first place, it'll be even much harder for that person to go and complete the search, and much harder for you to be able to then go back in your sent documents as well and look for the search and look for the document. So always label your documentation. It saves you headaches in the future, but it also just keeps things very orderly for you as well. And then the next one is to create folders, and that's really important. You should have different folders for different things, whether this is a folder for administration with like things like company registration, company documents, text information, things like that. Maybe there's a document for social media and it's got digital assets, it's got pictures, it's got videos, it's got images, it's got logos, and then documentation. It should be labeled by month and it should be organized neatly, so that even creating folders for clients as well. And then you just put all of the information for those clients in those one folders. And that one folder, what it does for you is that, like I said, it's something that is going to save you in the future. When you want to search for something, you don't want to go all the way back and search in your downloads. It takes up a lot of time. And then signing off emails politely, like when you're first starting out and you don't really know who you're working with. And like I said, for some people, you probably never ever meet your coworkers. Maybe they're in Los Angeles or in Russia. I don't know. Now with coronavirus, like people won't really be traveling so much. Business travel right now is really, really low, and it's really dead unless it's super, super essential. So when you first start working with people, signing off emails makes you look very organized and well put together. So sign off, your emails politely: warm regards, kind regards, best or sincerely. and it makes you look like a very well organized person and an efficient person. And yeah, okay. So I think there's a bit of repetition from what we said last time, but it's the same thing. So when you get work, read through it, confirm deliverables to establish clarity, confirm the tasks, the deadline when the work is needed, and then start doing the work. And then life happens as always, living and working at home. So always do your best to deliver on time, even if you have power cuts, even if you have different challenges, there are always 146 different ways that you could solve it. And if you can't, for whatever reason, this is where it's really important. Don't send WhatsApp messages or informal messages. When you can't make a deliverable on time, there's some organizations where things like that are business critical and you don't know, maybe because you haven't been working there for a while. So always write an email and apologize and follow up with it with a new date and a commitment to it, to meeting that date. Then at least someone is psyched up to understand and someone knows that you have taken accountability, you've been accountable for what has happened and you will be working on it. So the last thing really is to always submit complete work that needs few corrections. And this is something that can only happen if you raise your level of necessity. You can imagine just how tiresome it can be for someone who has to review a lot of work, and then they review your work. There are like 1,000 corrections to be made. They send it back to you. You edit it shortly. You send it back. They have to review it again. So try and always do your best to reach what you would say this is it. So before you submit your work, look at it and say, am I proud of this work? If I could be asked to read this work out loud, would I be able to read this work out loud with pride? If you can answer yes to that, then click send. But it's really important when you're starting out as a in the gig economy and you're working as a remote worker. If you want to keep working with an organization, you really have to be excellent and maintain the excellence. So work to stay in, work to get in, and work to stay in. So we're almost at the end. So I would like to just give a bit of advice here, but I'm actually thinking this slide should come at the end. So let me move on. So now this is the case study that I've put together. And our case study subject in this case is Samuel. So Samuel is a young writer from Accra. He has been blogging for the last 1 year. Recently, he has been getting a lot of gigs, blogging for publications online. Electricity in his area has also recently become a challenge. Sometimes the power is out for 6 hours and it's really affecting his productivity and he can't meet his deadlines. He wants to write an email to his supervisor, Kwame, who he is really afraid of. The following is a bad example of what not to write to Kwame. So this is the email that Samuel has written. Hello, sir. I'll be unable to hand in the article today. Something is happening on my side with the electricity. We've sent an email to the ECG company and they say they'll let us know. I'll be in touch when they get back to me. Thanks for your understanding, Samuel K. So for those who are not Ghanaian, the ECG company, it's basically the local version of what would be the national power company, wherever country you're signing in from today. So this is the letter that Samuel has written. I think there are a lot of things that are wrong with it, and I'll pinpoint them out in the next slide. So what's wrong with this email? It does not have an answer the following. When is the next best estimated time that Samuel can deliver? There's no apology for shifting the deadline. What are his other options to manage the situation? And he has assumed understanding from Kwame. So even though Samuel has good intentions to hand in the article, he hasn't communicated that well to Kwame. So let's reword this email together. in real time. Can you just confirm with me that you can see what I'm typing now?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, okay. So we want to be able to reword this email to, so this is the email again. I'll read it out. Hello, sir. I'll be unable to hand in the article today. Something is happening on my side with electricity. We've sent an email to the ECG company and they say they'll let us know. I'll be in touch when they get back to me. Thanks for your understanding. Samuel K. So now we want to write an email to Kwame that he will understand. So let's say, let's start with the greeting. Let's suppose that it's in the morning. So let's say you were supposed to send the article that evening, but already the electricity has been a challenge. So probably he's now sending the email in the morning. So the first thing is always say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. So no matter how bad the news that you have is, you must always say good morning or good afternoon, or you must always pass the greetings. That way you can temper someone's reaction before they spin and they're not very happy. So he has made his greeting. The next thing now, I'm now going to type the response that he can have said. So good morning, Kame. I hope you are doing well. Let me delete this. Okay. I hope you are doing well this morning. You that I will be unable to submit the XYZ, so the name of the article by 6 p.m. this evening. We have been facing power challenges in my area for the last 48 hours. I am kindly requesting an extension so that I can, that will enable me to submit what would be prudent at this point. You can shift it by an extra 6 hours or 12 hours. 24 would be pushing it. So always ask for at least 12 more. Be able to submit by midday tomorrow. I am making plans to visit a cafe that will have power. I am certain that I will be able to complete and submit by the aforementioned time. My sincere apologies for the inconvenience. Once more, I look forward to your response. Let me just make this font smaller so that it can fit. Can you still see? Hello? Can you still see, guys?
You can see it.
All right. Look forward to your response. Yes. Best Samuel. So I don't know if you can see the difference between this email and the one that he sent earlier, and this one. So in this email, he has one, he has let his supervisor know of the challenge that has been going on. He has let him know how long it's been happening, and he has requested an extension so that he can be able to submit. And he has let him know how he's going to solve that situation, and he has apologized and he has requested a response. So if you were reading an email like this, no matter the challenges that someone is facing, you would understand where they are coming from, and you would then give them room to be able to work on whatever they need to work on. So let's continue. So I'm going to make this available. So the kraado team let me know that a lot of you have ended in your emails. So I'll make these templates available to you once we are done with the session. All right. So that's it, guys. The session is done. I'm finished. It's now time for questions, and yeah, I'm ready. Let's hear it. Thank you so much.
All right, Heather, thank you very much. That was wonderful, and it still looks like we have a lot to learn, even about writing emails, what to put in there, how to explain things to your boss. And I told you earlier that we have some questions from our online community, and but most of them have been actually asking, how do you communicate with your boss? It just seems that there's not much that we are clear about, and for that matter, people don't give us the chance because we're just not clear, and we didn't tell him when we're going to submit the work. How are we going to, overcome that issue that we're having? So that is certainly wonderful. Thank you very much, Heather. I think one of our community members, Samira, hi Samira. Samira is asking, what about the last slide that you were going to share that you skipped, and then you moved to the email session? If you could go back for Samira.
Okay. All right. I found it.
It was about the new gig. Slide.
Okay. All right. Can you see it now?
No, really. Okay, it's coming now.
All right. So this was mainly for some people that are working as writers, or no matter what you're coming to do, like on the internet. My advice was that sometimes before you find your niche, for example, things that you would love to write about, like day and night, or work or projects that you would code in like day and night, and you wouldn't get bored. My advice really was sometimes work on things that you aren't passionate about, so that you can earn the coins to work on things that you're passionate about. I could tell you some, like I've had a point where I've written articles about machines, that machines and things that you normally wouldn't even think to write about, but just because it pays well at the time, and you want to first of all get very comfortable writing. No experience is bad experience. So sometimes just choose to work on that until you can write about the things that actually really make interest you. And then the next one was to always work on improving your writing skills and your conversational writing. So if you can think about the person who understands you the most in the world, whether it's your best friend or your mom or whoever, the way that person understands you is based on the way that you're able to talk to them. So there's something called conversational writing, and that is really writing as you speak, but you have to develop your own voice that people can understand when they are reading from you. So that is something that you can always work on, improving your writing skills, because that's your voice on the internet, that's your voice on the world. You're not going to be in an office and you're not going to meet those people for lunch or have a drink with them after work. it's because we're just so far apart. So work on improving your conversational writing skills and work on improving your writing skills. So that was my advice. So thanks, Samira, for that. And then I also wanted to just share some extra resources as well. So this is for if you want to look for PowerPoint templates that are really, really cool, you can use slidescarnival.com. It's free forever. And then when you need images of Black people, you can search for nappy.co and Splash and pixels.com. They also have got free, great looking images that are not so common, like not everybody has them. And then for words that mean the same, I think it's hippo.com if I'm not mistaken. So that is when you're looking for synonyms that can help you when you're trying to communicate. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Heather. I don't think anybody has actually advised me to follow their dreams I'm not passionate about, but this is definitely exciting. So I think we'll take some questions. I'll call them pre-asked questions from our community, those who registered for the session, and then after that we'll take some questions from the live audience. So I'm sharing my screen about now. I hope everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we have one question from June, and June is asking, how do you provide better visibility to your work when working remotely, especially in a system where trust from your manager is quite low, where your engagement with your manager is quite low and all that? How do you still be productive and stay on top of things?
Wow. Okay, that's a very important question because a lot of people struggle with that. So I think really, so when you get an assignment, right?
Mm.
The first thing you can do is to understand, to agree. I've received this email. Thank you from this email. I understand that these are the deliverables X, Y, Z. What is the timeline on this? When do you expect this work to be done? And then you get a response. Thank you for the response. I think that this is the plan of how I'm going to tackle it. And then once you have a plan for how you tackle it, then share a skeleton draft for how you are going to do the work. And if, for example, that work is set in stages, you can sort of project manage yourself where you share your timeline with your manager. Like, I am here now. This is what I've managed to accomplish. What do you think? I know that there are some managers where like I don't want to show them anything until I'm done because
Yeah.
they'll keep on giving me corrections and then I have to start all over again. But when you are studying with a new manager and they're like that, you have to go through that with them because people are so much more sensitive and they'll actually feel like, oh, they don't want to show me what they're working on until they're done. And then you don't want to be in that position. So you have to follow their lead, figure out is this a helicopter or
Yeah.
manager, is this a micromanager? And then just follow that lead until they gain your trust, until you hear this is very good work, and then you know that you're on the right track. I hope I've answered you, June.
Yes, I hope June has answered. I think the whole night has actually been about this question. How do you excel in communicating effectively? But Heather, if you could just have a summarized answer to this. Should someone see you as how do I excel? What would be your most summarized answer?
I think the summary really is that you kind of have to anticipate what is going to be needed, and then you go ahead and to prepare that before it's asked for. So that really comes from knowing and understanding. Monday to Friday, I do X, Y, Z. Therefore, um, Y will be needed before Z. So I should probably speak to my colleague in this department so that I can get that before the Monday morning 9 a.m. meeting. Instead of saying in the meetings, oh, I had not yet done it because I was waiting for Samira to send it to me, or Samira has not yet sent me this, so I need it. So always anticipate what's needed ahead of time, and in that way you then communicate you then communicate ahead of time as well. Yeah.
Right. And then we have Abina. Abina actually had a medical environment.
Okay. All right. So how do you address customers who do not regard you as
Question,
qualified?
and probably we also do some in a remote setting. So Abina's customers will probably be patients who do not regard her as qualified enough, mostly probably looking at her age and all that when she's communicating remotely. So this
Mm,
about worker and customer communication. How does Abina still communicate effectively in order to sort of gain customer trust and then confidence?
mm. Okay, okay. So this one is, it's actually very what's the word? Sensitive is not the right word, but because it's also medical, I would really advise Abena that.
Hello, Heather.
Hello, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Heather, we can hear you. I think Stefan is having some issues with his connection. So you can still go on.
All right. So I was saying that because it's the medical industry, my advice to Abena would just to be as clear as possible. So play back what the customer says to you. If the customer says, I'm looking for XYZ medication, she really has to give a rundown of why she will recommend this over that, and basically make it an opportunity for her to showcase her knowledge and what she knows about the challenges that the customer is facing. Sometimes this happens, you come across people that you can really see that they don't think you know what you're doing, and in that case the worst thing you can do is, really show that you're affected by that. It's actually an opportunity for you to just, spread your qualifications on the table and do it in a very graceful way that still also make sure that the one day or the next day they're still a client of yours. So in that case, I would basically let Abena know that it's an opportunity for you to showcase your skills, and whatever you do, don't let the customer make you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Showcase to them why you are the one who has to dispense the medication, why you are the one who has to do the work, and in that case they can be able to respect you because you will give them all the reasons why they should take your advice. I hope I've answered your question, Abena.
Yes, you have, even though I'm not having.
Yes,
Okay.
and I to be in the medical community. So yes, it is I think the most wonderful answer, especially when you are young. Patients see you, and who are you to tell a patient not to do this or that? You're just young, so yeah. definitely you would have to let the patient know that you've gone through the training, you're confident in your skills, and then ready to establish a network with them. And then I think this would be a last question from our online community. We have Linda, and Linda is saying, what is the best way to have a conversation with your superior when a decision he or she has made would cost the organization and its reputation? How do you actually challenge a superior's, decision?
Wow. Can you repeat that?
I think it was from Linda, and Linda was asking, what is the best way to have a conversation with your superior when the person has made, let's say, a bad decision that will cost the organization and its reputation?
Wow. Wow. Wow, that is a very, very difficult question to answer. And
Yeah, huge.
it's huge, because at the end of the day, it's always so much more easier to criticize, because heavy wears the crown. So the one who has taken the the who has taken the risk to build the company, and you who has now come to work in the company, and you think that they are not doing a good job, or they've taken a decision that will damage the reputation of the company, and then you want to advise them. It's very hard. It's very, very hard. I think it depends on the closeness of the relationship that you have with your superior. Are you able to cross that line? And if you cross that line, can you come back?
Would you dare?
Yes, and just how candid can the conversation be, and just how well intentioned, like, will your statements be received? Because criticism, there are only a couple of people in the world that, even you yourself, as you are sitting there, you can take criticism from without taking it personally. So you really have to evaluate, who are you before you open your mouth and say, boss, I don't think you're doing well. Who are you, and how close are you? How much have you invested in this company? And how much risk have you taken? How much skin do you have in the game, before you actually step out and say, I think we're about to go down here. That's why people leave companies, because sometimes they see that these things they see maybe a certain direction that the company is going, but because they are not yet that close enough to tell the boss that I don't think this is a good decision, or XYZ manager is taking a direction that will take the company left, people just leave, because they look at they realize that, and they see that they are not able to make those changes either on a small scale or a big scale, just because they don't yet have the skin in the game. So you have to evaluate a lot of things before you make that decision. And when you see that you cannot have a positive outcome, you have two choices. You can either keep quiet, or you can leave. And when you can keep quiet and you stay and wait for the train to fall off the tracks, or you leave and you go and find elsewhere where things will get better for you. But yeah, I hope I have answered Linda's question. That was a very difficult question.
I think Samira also made some contributions there. I also want to say that, are you going to be talking to the manager or the business owner in front of other people, or it's going to be a private conversation.
Yeah.
That also can be a game changer of whether you're being sent back in or you're staying.
Exactly. That's very true. And I see Samira is saying company policy. I think, Samira, you also understand that HR exists to protect the interests of the company. So you must also remember that as well, that it's very difficult for things to get back to the way it used to be once you have highlighted something that probably you think that it should change. So that's why I said you really have to evaluate your place in the organization and what that would mean. Would you be able to bounce back from speaking out about that? Remember that people who speak truth are critical thinkers, and critical thinkers don't flourish in situations where you have to smooth things over most of the time. So that's why a lot of them are entrepreneurs. So you really have to evaluate your position before you speak out about something you're not happy about.
Yeah. And so I think still on these questions, Samira has really been giving us wonderful additions. I think on a low trust manager, she said they do exist and they'll actually get to you. But what you have to do as a person working under a low trust manager is you have to strive to learn and grow. Don't waste your energy on doubters, and try and do your best for your organization. So mostly it looks like it will end up you doing your best. And on Linda's question, I think that is about you sort of challenging your manager's decision. She said you would have to be as polite as possible. You would have to ask open-ended questions like, would this decision, be better than other alternative decisions that you could have taken? And probably, just to trigger, their thinking, give them thought-provoking questions, and it may actually start some conversation that you could come up with, that would actually would sort of generate some sort of conversation. Because I think mostly it's best to make people feel like they thought about that idea than to just tell them no, do this. So thank you very much, Samira. I think the challenging your manager's decision is a very, very tough business or organization situation that subordinates always meet, and you would have to definitely evaluate. You definitely have to know who your manager is. Samira was asking, you would have to know your company policies, how protected you are as an employer, and then if all things are green for you, then you can definitely go ahead. Okay, so now we can take questions from our live audience, and it says Samira has been actually pressing. Hi, Samira. You said you have a question. Kindly go ahead.
I wrote it in the chat. You didn't read it, or you are swerving it because it's for Kraado community.
I'm not serving. I think I've been going through.
I said, my question for Kraado young people: why are people worried about communicating with their bosses? Because all your questions are based on how do I talk to my manager? How do I email my manager? How do I tell my manager this? Is it that you are so afraid of another human being that, like, because they have a little power to either pay you or kick you out of the company? I mean, if you live in that kind of fear, then you'll be stuck. You'll be stuck where you are for a very long time because, I mean, we just talked about bosses who look down on you or they don't trust the work you do. I mean, you hired somebody for a reason. So obviously the problem is not the person you hired. The problem is you. Because why have you hired somebody and the person cannot freely, like, give their input to the company. It's true that in Africa, a lot of people get into jobs that they don't really like. It's because they just want to make a little money to live. But you should trust that the people you are working with all have the company's interest at heart. So it is the bosses that have the problem, but that doesn't mean that you cannot, how do I say, have a certain relationship with your boss. I mean, they might give you menial jobs because they don't think you can do what they would like you to do. But yes, do the menial jobs, but do them well and behave well. And just, that's what I was saying, just do the job that you've been given the best way you can. And then later on, they themselves might try to test you with like maybe bigger things because they've seen that, okay, you are conversant with these other stuff. So I don't see why you should be so bothered. The questions had me laughing.
This question and this line of conversation may open us up to another session where I know Heather will be happy to talk about on managing up, because it's very important. If you want to succeed in any organization, you need to know how to manage up.
Yeah.
Communication is a whole ball game. Like,
Yes.
Ball game. I mean, I had my share of it, where in the end the person had to ask me before taking decisions, because 3 times I told him, I warned the person, and they didn't listen and they got in trouble. So after the 3rd time, each time before he took any decision, he would go and ask me. And I was confused. Why are you asking me? At first, you wouldn't be asking me. So just be patient with yourselves, and then you'll be fine.
Thank you, Samira. Please, do we have anybody in the audience who would like to ask us a question? Have any question for Heather? I think Heather would love to answer your question.
I think Yokai has a question. It's up.
Yeah. Okay, so Bayrak actually totally agrees with Samira. He believes management should have confidence in the people they hire so that they could execute, and then and also channel discussions and conversations that will promote the growth of your organization. So that's also very important. So if you're a manager here, my boss, Kafi, I hope you are listening to us.
So Samira's question was very direct. Why do you guys have problems with asking people, with communicating with your bosses? I know you don't have any problem with that. Victor don't have any problem with that. So, Samira, we are good. With the Kraado team, we are good.
Are you sure? The questions were coming from the Kraado team. So are you sure?
Yes. What I will say here right now is the fact that when people agree to come for a session or to come for a meeting, let's say a phone screen call just to get you into an internship or a volunteer role, they don't show up. And you don't show up, you don't send an email, you don't make any excuses. Come on, that's so unprofessional. And as soon as you do that, you've just eliminated yourself out of the whole process, because you will not be you don't have the soft skills to communicate to me or to Stefan or Victor that you're not able to make it. And sometimes they give excuses about how their computers broke, they are restarting their machine. I'm like, come on. Those things can be very annoying when you spend all the time trying to help people. And then one time a friend of mine said, Kafi, you don't have to fuss about these things. They will always do that. After all, you're not paying to move from your house to a location to interview people. You are on your computer, right? So you save your transportation. So then that was like on the lighter note, then I laughed it off. But yes, we have issues with people not communicating. You shouldn't be afraid to speak to your superiors or your colleagues about issues. let me hand it over back to our experts. Me, I'm no expert in communication, so Madam Expert.
Okay, so on my side, I think that's all I had. I don't know if anyone else had any questions, but I've really enjoyed this session. Thank you so much for having me, Kafui, and the Kraado team. If anybody wants to connect with me further, I'm available on Twitter at Heather Mavunga, same on Facebook, all of the social media channels. Send me an email if you want to connect further. And I'll send you an invoice for my services. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time. I had a really great time.
Thank you.